What's up, guys? So today I am going to talk to you about what to expect as a truck driver, and this is just 1 month in, a little bit over, but let's say just 1 month, because if I calculate properly, it's gonna be like 1 full month, if you're calculating 31 days for the previous month. But 1 month in tracking, let's see how it's been and what to expect. There are a few things that as a newbie you must be paying attention to, if just to prepare yourself, how to go about tracking. If you want to do it, things you have to really think about and see if this is for you or not. See, tracking is one of those jobs that give you the privilege to see the country and travel and do something that you love while you're earning money, but you are also enjoying these beautiful sceneries and you are adventuring. But it also comes with its cons. So you have to be able to look at all of these sides before you decide to go into tracking. One thing we must know is that trackers are an essential part to the system. Trackers serve from retail, they serve food, they serve the dining industry, they serve manufacturing. Literally everything you see around you is provided to you, has to go through some sort of tracking. So we deliver things from clothes to food to basic raw materials to building and construction material, whether raw or processed. It is an essential part. So you do feel like you're doing something really good and essential to the whole system working. And you get to do this. If you love driving, you get to do it while you're doing something that you love. So dialing it back, I will say that it's been good for me because I've got to experience certain things that I couldn't have experienced in my previous source of employment. I couldn't have traveled, I couldn't have seen the country, I couldn't have been able to, of course it was essential too, but I couldn't have been able to see all these little facets that make up a working system. And when I say a working system, is like the whole of America, or a country, like all these little facets, and being able to contribute in that kind of way. As a tracker, you are mostly away from home, and that is something you have to be able to think about. You are away from home, and this comes to a strain not only to you but to your family and friends. The only other profession that I know is probably oil field workers and maybe the people in the military that spends days away from home. You as a truck driver, you have to plan out ahead that I'm gonna be away for like weeks before I go back home, and that is just gonna be for a few days, and then you hit the road back again. And this can be strainful, to the family, to you yourself. You do get homesick. I'll not tell you that it's just like, oh, because you love driving and because you love seeing the sceneries, you will not miss home. You might miss home because it's home. You will miss it. So pay attention to that. You are also, sorry, I'm reading notes here. I did jot down a few things so I don't get to forget them. You get to sharpen your driving skills. I know before you go into tracking, you think you know how to drive, but it takes some kind of control to be able to drive the truck. For those of you who drive trucks and trailers, you have to be able to know how to control them. You drive in areas that have strong winds. You must have a good grip on that steering so you don't get blown off the road or cause an accident, fatal ones, because these are big equipments that you're driving. You will be able to know how to drive in hilly areas, like really steep hills and also down the hill and windy roads, and places that have very good sceneries do have tricky roads to drive on. And luckily enough, we started driving during spring, and some places were, I think, summer, because it was really hot, especially California, but it wasn't bad. So imagine driving in the winter. You get those skills too, and that's a big thing, I think, personally, to be able to add onto your chip in terms of driving, to have that confidence on the road when you can drive such a big truck. You might be able to also see not just the state you're in, but to be able to travel. Traveling is like super. I hear so many people say like, oh, I love to travel. So if this comes to you in terms of work, I think that's a big plus, because truckers move not only around America, sometimes they go to Mexico, they go to Canada, and there's a lot to see. And just to be able to count, like, I've been to this state, you might not, okay, most of the time you're just going through it using the state highway, but there's a certain feel to it that I was there. I've ever been there. You can't say you've never been to a certain place when you've literally gone through it. So the only thing that I could say that you don't really get to enjoy as travel, in this case, travel as a trucker, is that you don't get to go and enjoy the entire scenery or the city like for hours and days, not most of the time, because if you are on a route like it's like 1,500 miles, you'll probably go through a couple of states, because you have to beat the time, so you never get to see the sceneries. But if you ever land in that state, and that's where you're delivering, and it's the weekend, you get time to go and view and enjoy the city if you're close by it, or the suburbs for that matter. So that's a good thing. The other thing you probably get to have, you must think about is your lifestyle is going to be rotating around the truck and the job. When I say that, it comes in with, first of all, space. Your space is going to be limited to the truck. And I don't know about you, sometimes it can be crowded in there. And you have to be in that space, from clothing to meals to, phones, talking to people. That's the only space you have for certain prolonged periods of time, and you have to be able to adjust to that. Otherwise it can get depressing, because you feel like you're confined to this small space. And then you have to think about foods. If you are someone who enjoys home cooked meals, you're gonna have to adjust to meals on the road, fast foods, because that's mostly what you're gonna get, and you might be not even having time to wait in like a restaurant that will make you a meal between 15 to 20 minutes, because you just have to be on the go. So you mostly have to grab meals like from Denny's, McDonald's. If you're lucky, you might get a Chick-fil-A, KFC. It's just a different shift. You have to make that shift. You also have to think about living in, if you are out of the truck and you have to go to, a comfortable bed, comfortable, I'll put that in quotes, but comfortable. It has to be in a motel. Why do I say motel and not hotel? Because those are what are mostly accessible to truckers. But also because it's a business, you have to think about the expense, and the expense that can, cater for somebody, and then you can still have some cash flow in the business. When it comes to the baseline, is to go to the motels. This range from $50 to $100. You have to be in that range, but 50 to 70 should be good, in terms of how much capital is going out of the company. So you have to think about staying in spaces that are not very, 5-star. For those of you who just want 5-star, you just have to think about, like, it's not gonna be that posh. So just adjust yourself and calm yourself down and think that, okay, this is just for a while and I'm only here just to do business, and after a certain while I'll go back to my comfortable bed or to a posh life and go to 5-star Sheraton and, I don't know, Wyndham, whatever, floats your boat. But other things are shower times. Because you're on the road so much, you cannot be showering like 2 times a day or 3 times, or whenever you feel hot or you feel, and even change of clothes, it has to be on schedule. Sometimes you might go a day without showering because you're trying to beat time on delivery. In our case, we were driving as a team, so most of the time we would get loads that were 1,500 miles or 2,000 miles, so we were trying to beat the time and get there much earlier so we can catch another load. So most of the time we would shower after, or after like 24 hours, and that's a long time. Sometimes you're hot, sometimes you're just uncomfortable, the body is itchy, you want to shower, but you're on the job. So, and you have to remind yourself, like, Pauline, I'm not home, so I need to calm down and just stay focused until the time, or how many miles until when you get to a good place that you might shower from, because some of them are not that very nice, paying, when it comes to the pay, you being able to get momentum and getting a steady flow of a certain amount of income is gonna take a bit of practice, and looking and getting a good dispatcher. You don't get them right off the bat, like, oh, the first day I say I'm ready to go and drive is when you're gonna get a good dispatcher and good loads just flowing in, week after week. No, sometimes you're gonna be getting shitty loads and they're not going to be paying as much as you think, and you might not be able to make how much you think you should make in a week. You might be sent out in a state that doesn't have good loads, and you might spend a couple of days without having loads. You might also go from one state that pays less to one that pays a little bit more, so it brings about changes in your earnings. But that's just because you're starting out, you're trying to figure things out, and that's not to worry you, but it's definitely something to think about. And lastly is, you can get lonely, and if you're not very careful, and if you haven't tuned your mind very well and found ways to work around it, ways like entertaining yourself with music, having people on the phone to speak to, having supportive family and friends, and also being able to go out and work out and do some meditation. You might get depressed because it is very lonely, driving miles and miles, staring at just this straight route. Sometimes you're going through dry lands for like hours, and your mind can wander. You can go from one thing and stay for a certain period of time thinking about it, and then go on to another. But on the flip side of that too, the loneliness, you get to learn so much about yourself. If you're a godly person, you can get back to God, and there are lots of hours of prayer there. I know I did pray a lot, especially when we had just started out. I was so scared of the road, I was scared of bridges. It can be good and bad depending on how you look at it. If you can prepare yourself, I think, beforehand, which is the purpose of this video, you will be fine. I'll be getting more stories out to you. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.